Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Thirsty Thursday edition, the special January 6th edition of The Rundown. I will be your host today, Craig DeLuz, coming at you from the West Coast, the left coast, behind the Iron Curtain, otherwise known as the Sierras. But as we all know, I do not do this program by myself.
No, it's my guest honoring today to be here with you as your co-host for this very special day. The Craig, it's the anniversary. It's Insurrection Anniversary Day. My name is Mike Piwowarski. I will be with you here, coming to you from the East Coast, the coast with the most. I am the co-host with the most, so it works out. So it's great to be here on Insurrection Day with you, Craig.
Okay, well, now if we're going to call it Insurrection Day, I had because I got to think. Okay, just like when we talk about gun violence, right?
Yep.
I use my air quotes. We've got to use them. If you only want to use one, you can use one. But we got to use the air quotes when we call it Insurrection Day. So it's called Insurrection Day.
I'm clearly. I believe I thought I was clearly being facetious.
I know.
In making fun of the liberals in their terms here on Insurrection Day.
Well, no, I completely agree. You know, it's funny. Leading up to today, and what I do for some of my clients is I spend a lot of time following, reading mainstream left-wing media. And it has just been a constant onslaught of misinformation, disinformation, and out and outright lies. And so that's why I'm glad at least we're going to take at least one day and we're going to kind of unpack at least the biggest of those lies that have been told about January 6th.
That would be great. That's it's not like we haven't covered them already this year, and most of them have been proven true, and most of the sources have proven that they lied, but I guess they forgot all that. So,
well, here's the thing. I just wanted something to be able to share with some of my liberal friends so that every single time they come up, and because there's going to be a lot of them who are going to, whether it's Facebook me or text message me or something like that about something going on today. And I want to be able to share with them, look, these are my thoughts, and I don't have to respond. So I just share this video and bam, y'all are done. Shut up.
Before we get into it, Craig, let me ask you, where were you? What was your reaction when you heard of what was going on?
Okay, so it's interesting that you asked, because I was actually invited to actually go to Washington, D.C. A number of folks that I know actually were going, and I decided not to. I decided to stay home. Not so much stay home, but there was an event that was taking place at the state capitol here in Sacramento, California. I was actually one of the speakers that day. And it was interesting because I'm watching on my phone as I'm getting ready. I don't remember if I had already gotten up to speak or if it was after I'd gotten up to speak. But, the thing that was frustrating me when I first saw it was the first thing I saw, obviously they weren't going to actually show Donald Trump speaking, because Lord forbid they actually should show at the time, the president of the United States speaking to a crowd of tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people. Yep. They're not going to show that. But they were showing, all of a sudden I saw them showing the stuff, people climbing on the outside of the Capitol building, people fighting with police. And all I remember thinking was, this is disgraceful. I cannot believe that this is happening. And these are supposed to be, quote unquote, our folks. And I was angry. I was frustrated because I'm a person who's always said, look, I'm not going to say that there is never a time for violence, because revolution most revolution is violent. But this was not revolution. This is a time where these are people who I thought were seeking political redress from their government. And that's not the way in which you do it by engaging in violence. So I was angry. I was frustrated, but I also understood the people that were there were also angry and frustrated, just like the people who had been rioting in the streets all throughout 2020, or through the last half of 2020, were angry and frustrated, the people who protested. And then a minority of those folks decided that they were going to engage in violence. And so that was kind of where I was at. I was really kind of a combination of angry and ashamed by those who were on our side.
We come to learn later that there were bad actors there as well, trying to make things worse. I remember there being a sense of pride, realizing at first what it was thought was just a large protestation of what the events of the day were. Then as you watched it and realized that there were bad actors there trying to make this seem much worse than it was. It was a little concerning because this was again, and we can have this conversation over and over again. The theft of an election. This was there's just too many questions. I'll say this: too many questions left unanswered to continue forward with the new appointment. Okay, I mean this is akin to a South or Central American dictator or president saying we're getting rid of presidential elections and I'm now the president for life, because this was an undetermined, we'll say that, an undetermined count for elections yet. We still knew we had several states in dispute over the numbers. There had not been final counts yet. And I think that's what people were upset was, how can you certify an election where we still have 6 states where the count's not final?
Well, but Mike, it wasn't just, and here's the thing, and by the way, that was the best way you have described your position on it on air with us together since it happened, and I agree 150% with everything that you just said, every single thing. The other thing, though, that people don't realize is it wasn't just about the what happened in terms of the running of the elections. Keep in mind, you had mainstream media, you had the tech giants, were all colluding to not allow free and open discussion about items that were particularly important in this particular election. You had them basically flat out lying about you had them totally covering up the Hunter Biden laptop and the links to China and Russia. They were completely and utterly covering that up. And if you said anything about it, you got shut down. They were completely and utterly, I mean, Donald Trump was one of the first people to talk about therapeutics, right? Therapeutics that were effective in terms of mitigating the impacts of the symptoms of COVID-19. And by the way, there's been studies, about 140. I was listening to an expert the other day that they've estimated pretty much that about, what was it? I'm going to say about 500,000 deaths could have been avoided if it weren't for the misinformation by the left and the media on things like hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin that could have been deaths that could have been avoided. I mean, these are people angry and people frustrated. There were lockdowns that people were frustrated and angry about. I mean, people are talking about, you hear people talk about the devastating effects of COVID. Yes, there were a lot of people who died of COVID. But the thing that caused most of the issues that we were dealing with, whether it was education, whether it was people losing their businesses or being shut down, people losing their homes and all of that, was more the government response to COVID. And all of that was what got people frustrated and angry in there on January 6th.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Everything was there. Everything was in place. You had like you said, the government and the media not answering questions, about what was going on. And I understand how people were angry. The only news that I got of the day, what was going on, that anything was reliable at all, was from and I'm not a big social media guy when it comes to this aspect of it. Turn to the social media feeds of what was going on out there, and you could actually see what was going on as opposed to what the news media was showing you, because the news media was showing you, an all-out assault by a force of 50,000 people, and when you got a hold of somebody on social media, you're like, no, we're 300 yards from that. We're just doing our protest. You mean there's people going inside? Is what you got from that. Talking to people.
What is
that were actually there.
Well, here's what's crazy. Here's what's crazy about it. Now, we'll go on to the first point. So they talk about the fact that this was an organized insurrection, right? But I have gone out of my way to try and find media accounts of how many people were at Donald Trump's event over at the Supreme Court and how many people were actually showed up at the Capitol building, right? And do you know that it's almost impossible to get an actual number? I mean, I searched for well over an hour. I don't know. Have you been able to find it what those numbers were?
It's somewhere between 10 and 50,000 is what I was able to find.
Between
That's a
10,000
huge
and
variance
50,000
too.
at the
Yeah,
Capitol
somewhere between
or at
10,000
Trump's
and
rally?
50,000.
Where?
Yes.
At the
Yes.
Capitol
At
or
the
at Trump's
Capitol.
rally?
At total for the Capitol.
Okay.
That may, I don't know if they started his rally or they were there for other reasons, but by the time it ended up at the Capitol building, it was somewhere between 10 and 50,000 people are the numbers that I've seen.
Okay. Yeah. Because my thing all along has been, look, majority of the people who were at Trump's rally didn't go to the Capitol.
Correct.
That was my
Correct.
understanding. After that, and once again, not being able to find, I wasn't able to find the actual numbers, but so it sounds like that was accurate. But here's the funny part. So an even smaller number of them actually were involved in the quote unquote insurrection, right?
As I just said to you, that that the people that I knew that were there, that were communicating and broadcasting from there, when I got a hold of them and said, "Hey, there's people breaking into the Capitol," they were like, "What? We're over here at the steps of so and so watching the speech." So
Mm-hmm.
it was not, as the news media would lead you to believe, that Trump gave them their marching orders and they went over there. It was already going on. People had decided to do it during his event to make it seem as though he was directing them to do so and that they could alter the timeline.
Well, now what's funny is, and so that gets to the point of, was this an organized insurrection? And here's the thing. First of all, we all know, just like I was invited by people to go, you were probably invited by people to go. Obviously, if you're going to an event where you know that there are going to be a lot of people, you're going to make plans with those individuals to make sure you guys are able to get connected. So in that case, was it organized? Well, obviously, yeah. But was the idea of overthrowing the government a plan of the individuals who went there? Now, my point to that is this. If it was a plan, Mike, do you know how many people were actually arrested for possession of firearms? Because first of all, if you're going to plan an insurrection, I'm going to assume that you're going to want to be armed, right?
Yeah, and Craig, I did see a number on this at some point during the year, and I can't remember where I saw it. So I want to clarify that first because I don't remember the source of it. But I think the total number of people they found with firearms was 6, if I recall. Now,
Two people.
okay, now that wasn't.
Well, let me clarify.
That was
2 people were
firearms.
actually charged. I found a
because
dead.
there are people that were lawfully allowed to carry firearms as well.
Yes. Okay, you are correct. You are correct. You are
Yeah.
correct. Only 2 people have been charged with illegal possession of firearms.
Okay. All right.
Everyone else who was deemed to have a quote unquote weapon had like a flagpole, right?
Yeah.
Because they had a flagpole on it. Or
Right.
people were using deadly weapons. Also, they had people who had signs. They had the stick that the sign was on, right?
Yep.
You had those folks. You had some people who were accused of assault with with a weapon because they were pushing the barricades or using the barricades.
Yes.
And by the way, just folks, let me just be very clear. If people engaged in violence or destruction of property, they need to be held accountable.
Yes.
Period.
Yeah.
I am not here to defend them. They need to be held accountable according to the law.
Right. And Greg, I don't want to make any excuses for them at all. Again, if there was any violence or anything involved or anything they did or property damage, then that's it. But I will briefly mention to you or talk to the folks about mob mentality. When you get, and I believe, and we've all seen, and I think this has been proven, that there were bad actors there, that you saw people that were not Trump supporters that showed up in the MAGA gear to start nonsense. And once they get to the point where they are doing that and they rile up the crowd next to them and get that mob mentality, it may take out of a crowd of 10,000, less than 25 to get that mob mentality going at the head of the crowd. And then it incites everybody else to want to do it as well. So people may have gone there with no intent to go through the doors, but when 20 people are standing next to them, rattling fences and going, save our government, it's like being at a ball game. You start yelling for your team and you're ready to charge the field, and take down the goalposts, all of that. That can happen at this event, and I know I've seen the reports of those infiltrators that were there doing that, that counter mob kind of stuff. It's that localized terrorist tactics. And I'm sorry, folks, that's what it is. If it's designed to disrupt the flow of a government and the people and the will of the people, that is the definition of terrorism.
Well, yeah, you know, Mike, it's funny because now, going along with what you just mentioned, I know that you are mentioning that as an explanation, not an excuse. So
Correct.
People, yeah, if you got caught up in it, I feel bad for you.
That's
but
right. Yeah.
You know
if
what?
the bad guy stood next to you and said, "Let's go through the door," and you went through the door with them, you're just as guilty. You may not be guilty of inciting it, but you're guilty of that trespass and that damage and whatever you did.
Well, and the other thing I think is this, is I think it is important to understand that there were some people who went into the Capitol building who did not know or understand that they weren't supposed to. Because there were, and we've seen video evidence of people, of security opening the doors and letting people in.
Yeah. Oh, you're exactly right. 5 to 10 minutes into this, when the cops said, "We're done," they just opened the doors and let people in because they made the decision, do I just let this guy walk through, or do I use a deadly force situation where I don't need to? They just let him walk through. And if you're opening the door for me when I get to the front of a building, hey, you know what my defense is? The cop opened the door for me. Okay? That's saying enter my home.
Yeah. No, you're 100% correct. And so here's the thing. Let's not get caught up in everybody was there to violently overthrow. We're a bunch of mad men and women, crazy people there to take over the government. And people were just on a stroll through the Capitol. Believe it or not, there were both those two extremes and everything in the middle for the people who were there.
Right.
But it was not an organized, armed insurrection. Because if it was an insurrection, it was the most poorly organized, poorly planned, and poorly prepared for insurrection that I've ever seen or heard of.
Again, I think it might have been organized and planned by 25, maybe 50 or 100 bad actors to go there and make it look like Trump people were doing bad things. It might have been organized by them, but everybody else that showed up for the rally and for the speech, there was no ill intent there. There was none whatsoever. And for those two that had firearms, listen, you get 10,000 people, you're going to get two jerks that think they can carry their firearm and nobody's going to catch them.
Exactly.
That's going to happen, and I know I saw that number that said 6, which means, by the way, that were 4 people that were licensed to carry firearms. And once they realized what was going on, they got out of there.
Right. And we do know that there were a number of law enforcement folks there. Some were local law enforcement who were participants, and some, people have questioned law enforcement's involvement. There was the one guy, and I was trying to find the video of him, who was there the night before, who was talking about, we need to go into the Capitol building. And everyone started yelling at him like, Fed. Do you remember that video?
Yes.
Now, the question, here's an interesting question. Why hasn't that guy been arrested? He's not one of the 720 some odd people who've been arrested.
Because he was one of the instigators. He was one of the inside people there.
Right. Well, we can't have the people actually involved in engaging. So the first point here is, number one, we all know this was not an organized insurrection. The other lie that's being told is around the idea of who died, or the people that died on January 6th. And here's an article. Now, it's important to note this. This is an article from, I believe, today. This is a New York Times article. No, from yesterday. And it's talking about the people who died in the Capitol riot, right? And here's a list of people. So first of all, there's Ashley Babbitt. We all know Ashley Babbitt was the only individual who died that day as a result of January 6th. She was an unarmed supporter of Donald Trump, a veteran who was shot by a Capitol police officer, who has not been held accountable at all. All right. We have Kevin Greason, who died of a heart attack. Now, did the Capitol riot cause his heart attack? I don't know, but I'm gonna take a good guess that if he was involved in a stressful incident, he was going to have a heart attack at some point or another. Here's one, Roseanne Boyland. It says that she was crushed by a stampede. Now, the reason why I want to point that one out is because that's actually been debunked. And it actually according to the Daily Beast, according to the ME, she died from a drug overdose. She did not die from being trampled in this particular riot. She died of a drug overdose. Now, maybe that day caused her to take drugs, and therefore she died of her drug overdose. I don't know, but I think saying that she died because of January 6th or as of January 6th is a problem. Benjamin Phillips, founder of a pro-Trump website called Trumparoo, died of a stroke. Now, Mike, I don't know what you know about strokes, but I'm going to assume that you know that that's not how strokes work.
You mean strokes just don't show up out of the blue, like you never had a symptom before in your life and you just all of a sudden get stroked out? It doesn't happen like that?
Well, we know it. Well, no, being at a rally and being, let me put it this way. Being at a rally would actually cause you to have a stroke.
Wait, so there's no pre-existing underlying health conditions? So they just showed up and somebody went stroke and gave them the stroke and that was it?
That is exactly what happened.
Yeah. I gotta remember that. Stroke. You just give it
so of all of the civilians, right? Of all the civilians that we know of, right? None of them that died near or around and about January 6th, no one died because of January 6th. No one died because of the protest. No one died because of the rally. But yet and still, you still have the New York Times reporting it as though they were killed as a result of January 6th.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And that, by the way, takes us to our next story. Our next lie. And the next lie is that police officers died as a result of January 6th. Now let's continue to go down this list. All right. Officer Brian Sitnick, right? They say he died because he was attacked by a mob and died on January 7th, as if he was attacked and he succumbed to his
Yes. That's it. Like they're saying, like he got wounded holding back the mob. They took him to the hospital and he died there later.
Exactly. Hold on, wait. I think I accidentally closed the. Hold on, wait. I'm looking for the. I actually had it up here. Rejected. Okay, hold on. I'm going to find this. I actually had this up. Oh, this is what I was looking for. This right here. All right, so. First, you see FBI investigating. Down here, you see FBI investigating the killing of Capitol Police Officer Brian Sitnick, right? So they're investigating it, right? That's of March 24th.
Yep.
Now, mind you, they already said as of February 8th that he died because he was attacked because of the attack, right?
Yes.
Now they have video showing him being attacked, right? That's also on March 24th. On April 5th, they say he died from injuries from the pro-Trump rampage. You see that? That's the list. This is once again the New York Times. We don't see it. Right?
The list up. We don't see it.
Oh, wait. What's this? What's this on April 19th, 2021? Officer attacked in Capitol died of strokes. A day later. Now we're going to go back to this original article. And yet here they have him saying he died because he was attacked by the mob. Now, tell me that's not misinformation. And
well,
folks,
remember the New York Times did issue the correction on that, and then now this new story's come out, but I guess they forgot they issued the correction.
Well, right, because if you go back and you look at the January 8th article, they didn't change the article. All they said was, oh, well, he may not have died. Or they're continuing to investigate his death. It may not have died from the attack.
Right.
But this is all misinformation. And we come back to now, all of a sudden, a year later, they're lying again. And by the way, Facebook and YouTube, the articles, the reason why I'm showing these articles, Facebook and YouTube, because I'm showing you that this comes from the New York Times. If I'm lying, the New York Times is lying. And shut down their YouTube channel. Shut down their Facebook page.
I've said it a couple of times. Put those articles up because nobody has seen them. They have not come up on the screen yet.
Right. So there it is. Though these are the people who died in the riots. All right, hold on. I'll pull up each one of them.
Yep.
Okay, this is the April 19th article. This is the April 19th article, right? Uh, this is the one where they're talking about the fact that he died from the rampage, right?
Right. It's still not
Oh,
on
I
screen,
think I
Craig.
think I
Put
hit
it
my
on screen.
paywall. I hit the paywall. Uh-oh. This is why I didn't want to pull them up, because I was afraid this would happen. I'd start hitting the
Gotcha.
paywall.
That's
FBI
okay
killing
then.
off. The point here, Mike, is I'm trying
That's
to. Yeah,
okay.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to pull them up, and they're blocking
That's
them.
okay. If we can't, it's okay.
Yeah, I keep hitting the paywall. But here, I'll tell you what. Here, I'll do it this way. Boom. So you can see at least the titles.
There you
So
go.
there's that one. FBI questions dozens killing police officers. Here's this
Yep.
one. Police officer dies of injuries. Here's this one. Officer attacked, dies of stroke. A medical examiner rules. Right.
Yep.
So
There
once
you go.
again, when you actually go to the people who know what they're talking about, you find out he died of a stroke. Right.
Yep.
And once again, here they are, January 6th. A year later, January 5th, a year later, they're lying. Flat out, 100% lying.
Yep.
Now, if I, once again, YouTube and Facebook, if you decide that you are going to block me, block our channel because of this, just know that if I'm lying, so is the New York Times, and you need to take them down.
There you go.
All right, let's move on to our next thing. Now, the next accusation, the next lie is that Trump incited the violence, right? Now, Mike, let's just be real, man. Did you watch the speech?
Now, I did not watch the speech in real time because it was not being covered completely. They had to wait and they were chopping it up and doing what they want. I did watch the speech later on in full. And the closest thing you could ever get to saying Trump incited violence was he said something along the lines of, make sure your voices are heard.
He said, let's go to the Capitol. Let's, peaceably make sure your voices are heard. I mean,
Yes.
now,
Yes.
granted, when Trump defends himself, he said, he likes to say things, oh, well, my speech was completely calming and this, that, and the other. Look, we know that's Donald Trump putting dubs on it. That's what Donald Trump does.
Right.
But having said that, I can think of, and I've pulled up, and we've had on this show dozens of examples of Democrats saying far more incendiary things, far
Sure.
more in when I say insightful, I mean inciting things
Yes.
that would incite violence than anything that Donald Trump said during that speech. It is not uncommon in political speech to talk about taking the fight to your opponents, to standing up, and we will not have this, and yada yada yada, without it necessarily being implied that I'm encouraging you to engage in violence. But yet, for some reason, they seem to think that Donald Trump, whenever he says something, that he has mind control over those over whom he speaks. And it's funny because I didn't watch it at the time because, like I told you, I was at our state capitol. But I went back and I watched his entire speech. I even went back and I read the full text of his entire speech. And when I ask people, nobody can tell me what exactly did he say. When
Right.
did he say go to the violent and go to the Capitol and storm the Capitol, break into the Capitol and attack the lawmakers? And none of that existed in that speech.
He said it never. That's why it's just more of the media and more of the left putting forth these lies to try and justify their own illegal actions. That's all.
Exactly. Anyway, so that's a big part of my frustration is that once again, they're flat out lying. It's like when you ask them, please show me the segment of the speech. And the most they can pull out is 5 words at one part that are taken out of context. And then when you go back into the speech, and that's the great thing about having access to the entire speech, is now I can actually do a search. I can find that exact phrase and I can pull out the entire context. And I can see what he said before that and what he said after that. And yeah, no, he was not inciting violence. Period. Now, if people decided that they were going to go engage in violence, hey, you know what? That's completely 100% on them. But dude.
Yes. Yeah. Or if they fell victim to the mob mentality or the
Right.
actors mentality, again, still on them. Yeah.
Right. They need to be held accountable for that.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
And by the way, and this then leads me to the kind of the last point here, and this is that this is one-off political violence. Now, I once again, and I will just say this: I am not a fan of. I do not believe in political violence. I'm not saying that I don't believe that when the time comes, armed revolution is a necessity. The founding fathers believed that. They wrote it in the Declaration of Independence. I'm sorry, you had a
You
point.
mean when they wrote, "It is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government to provide new guards for their home for their future security"? You mean when they wrote that?
Exactly. So the founding fathers believed in that.
Yeah.
But that's not what this was. This
Right.
was
And that's at the
people
most
seeking political
extreme.
redress.
They were very clear in the Declaration of the most extreme. This is
Right.
after a long line of usurpations. This was
Right.
not one disputed election.
Mike, exactly. But it's funny when I see this because I go back to where did I have this at? So this is, and I wanted to share this with you guys. So this is video of Trump supporters being attacked by the
Mexicans.
left, right? Political violence has really, honestly, it really started up around Donald Trump, around the campaign that took place in 2016. And there were incidents. I remember at the California Republican Party convention in San Diego, in San Jose, there were people were literally, it was okay. And people were okay with people chasing down. Look, you see these guys are chasing down Trump supporters in order to beat them up, right? Yep. That's what was taking place back then. And yet I didn't see anybody in the Democratic Party have any issue with that. Nobody. Right. There were no hearings, right? There was nothing that took place then. And oh, by the way, it's not even new in Washington, D.C. These are the violent rallies that took place, or the violent protests, or the mostly peaceful protests that took place right outside the White House. This was during the George Floyd riots. This was at the White House, folks. This is what was taking place. This is the violence, and these are just some examples. I mean, I could go through and I could find, look, now, I don't see anyone here being arrested, right?
No, because they're just exercising their rights of protest, their First Amendment rights,
Exactly. This is all outside. This is all happening in Washington, D.C. There were cars overturned, cars set on fires, buildings attacked. All of this is once again taking place in Washington, D.C. But, and by the way,
Hillary TV? Was that on Hillary TV?
On Hillary TV. But think about it, Mike. There were no hearings about the George Floyd riots. No. Nobody's mentioned the fact that 25 people actually died. Over half of them, by the way, this is all about racial injustice. Half the people who died were black. Half the people who, not just who died, who were killed.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
What's the officer's name? Officer Dorn, who was killed defending a store.
Oh, in San Francisco. Yes, outside San Francisco.
Right, exactly. So in other words, you have people who were killed, actually killed during the George Floyd riots. Yeah. And I didn't see any federal investigations. There was clearly evidence that there was some sort of organization and collusion there. There's actually more evidence that there was collusion there, especially when you recognize that there were people people with no real means of support, traveling from all over the country to appear at these riots. Bricks all of a sudden showing up, right? To be thrown through windows.
On pallets. Yeah.
Right. Pallets of bricks.
On pallets. Yep.
But yet and still, no hearings. Folks, political violence is not new. Here's what's new. What's new is that people on the right are fighting back. And when I say fighting back, I don't necessarily agree with the violence. I mean, I don't agree. I mean, I agree you need to be able to defend yourself. And I think if someone seeks to engage in violence against you, you have every right to defend yourself. But seeking out violence is not something that I'm a supporter of. But they act like this was the only incidence of political violence, and political violence, only the right is capable of political violence.
Yeah, absolutely right. And I think, Craig, that's where the parting shot kind of goes, it's another example of people on the right being frustrated and willing to fight back, and what their
Exactly,
attitudes are.
exactly. This is who
How they're feeling.
this is who the left thinks we are. And oh, by the way, just for those of you watching, there is a language warning on this particular piece. You might recognize the song. Okay, the only thing I will say is this. Did he look like Joe Biden there for a minute? with the aviators?
The whole look, turn, bring the aviators down. I think that was more of a Maverick move, than a Joe Biden move.
But I mean, with the white head and the aviators when he turned and looked to the side.
He did have golden arms. That could have been corn pop in the sun.
That could have been corn pop in the sun. Oh man, look, folks. Here's the thing, and I think we'll sum this all up. I'll sum it up for myself. Once again, I said this at the beginning. I'll say it now. Those who engaged in violence and those who engaged in the destruction of property, they need to be held accountable. And I'm not just referring to the folks who did so on January 6th, but those who engaged in the same exact activities during the George Floyd riots of 2020. I do not believe in political violence. I believe that you seek political redress peacefully. You exercise your First Amendment rights. I just think that you undermine everything. And those who did so, quote unquote, in support of things that I believe, I will just say that you undermined everything that we are trying to do and get accomplished. And I'm not saying that I don't understand your anger or your frustration. I 100% do, but there's a way to go about it, and that was not it.
Yeah, Craig, I don't know that it completely undermines it. Without this occurring, I think many people wouldn't have any idea of the level of frustration that does exist over this issue. So
good point.
Not that I support the undermining of it, but I think, without it occurring, again, how do we know that where we are in the country's feelings on this?
Exactly. By the way, shout out. That song was actually from what was that song from again?
South Park's Team America.
Right. So I want you guys to understand that that's the reason for the language. South Park. Yeah. But it was funny nonetheless. So
say hi to Matt and Trey for us. Yep.
Funny guys. Yep. Want to give a shout out real quick to our sponsors?
Let's do it. Our good friends at Gorilla Machining, Grid Defense, and of course, the California Republican Assembly.
Exactly. Folks, once again, please remember like, share, and subscribe. If you just want to listen to us, remember you can find us wherever you get your audio podcasts. You can download. That includes Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, Apple iTunes, wherever you get your iPod, your podcast, you can find us, but you can also follow us on YouTube and on Facebook. And make sure that if you go there, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, and hit the notification button. That way you get notified every time we go live, and you can participate in the live chat as the program is taking place. In any case, folks, thank you. I'm sorry?
Oh, sorry. And don't forget, coming up January the 17th in Las Vegas at the Hofbrau House, it's the Rundown and Arms Room Radio Party. Free party. Come on out. Get your drink on with us, and come say hey, and we'll talk politics.
Free party. Come on out. Have a good time. We will enjoy hanging out with you guys there. Anyway, that's it for today. We will be back tomorrow on Freedback Friday. So you folks take care, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow.